Odysseus, symbol of wisdom, loyalty, and cruel fate. At the westernmost tip of ancient Greece, there was a small kingdom called Ithaca, a seemingly peaceful island. It was the starting point for one of the greatest adventures in Greek mythology, the journey of a man whose fate seemed stretched out by the gods themselves to test him to the very end. His name was Odysseus. Not the strongest warrior, not the tallest, but he was the smartest, the most resourceful, and the most resilient. Odysseus was not of common blood. His father, King Laertes, had fought alongside Jason in his quest for the Golden Fleece. His mother, Anticlea, was the granddaughter of Hermes, the messenger god of Olympus, who was known for his wit and cunning. As a result, Odysseus showed incredible sharpness and cleverness from a young age. The people of Ithaca often said that boy does not need a sword, just words can overthrow an army. No one wins a war by strength alone. Achilles can pierce any shield with his spear. Ajax can repel an entire army with his hands. But for Odysseus, victory begins with the mind. When Helen, the living symbol of beauty, elopes with Prince Paris of Troy, all of Greece is shaken. Kings, lords, and former suitors are now forced to follow their old vows, take up arms, and together reclaim the stolen beauty. But amid the tsunami of war, there was one man who refused to set sail, Odysseus of Ithaca. He was not a coward. He just saw what others did not. War kills more than just enemies. It kills dreams, families, and peace. One morning, people saw him tying an ox and a horse to the same plow, something so absurd that it was almost laughable. As he walked, he was spreading salt on the field, muttering like a madman. Everyone was surprised. Has Odysseus, the wisest of us, gone mad? But not everyone believed. Palamedes, a shrewd warrior, looked at Odysseus and then at the little child playing nearby. It was Telemachus, Odysseus' son. With a cold, cruel look, Palamedes picked up Telemachus and placed him right in front of the advancing plow. At that moment, no words, no lies could hide the truth. Odysseus immediately snapped the plow handle, narrowly avoiding his son. And with that snap, the mask of madness fell off, revealing a father, a man who was frighteningly sane. The plan failed. Wisdom could not save him from his fate. And war, the very thing he wanted to escape, finally opened its doors to him. Odysseus, the hero, without a crown, without a throne, only a mind and an undying faith. When Troy fell under his cunning, through the most famous wooden horse tactic in history, it seemed that the war was over, and he would return home in glory. But no, that victory was the beginning of a series of punishments from the gods, who never liked the arrogance of humans. Odysseus, in a moment of arrogance, declared that he did not need the gods to win. From that moment on, he was destined to a stormy path, cursed by Poseidon, god of the sea. The sea is no longer the way home, but a deadly maze. The ship carrying Odysseus and his crew drifted from island to island, but each island was not a paradise of rest, but a cruel test from fate. First stop, the island of the Cyclops, the one-eyed man-eating giant. They thought this place was uninhabited, so they freely entered the cave, ate, and drank to their heart's content. But then the Cyclops, Polyphemus, returned. He captured them all, ate them alive, one by one. One morning, one person disappeared. At night, another. Odysseus did not beg. He did not kneel. He devised a daring plan. Get the Cyclops drunk. Then, while he was asleep, drive a stake through his Aja revenge that angered even Poseidon, whose son Polyphemus was. As he left the island, Odysseus could not help but turn around and shout. If anyone asks who made you lose your only eye, say, it was Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, and that was his sentence of exile for the next 10 years. After escaping the Cyclops, Odysseus and his crew arrived at the island of the wind god, Aeolus, the ruler of all the winds of the world. Admiring Odysseus's ingenuity and bravery, Aeolus gave him a precious gift, a buffalo hide bag containing all the fierce winds, leaving only the favorable wind to carry the boat back to Ithaca. They set sail, and after only 9 days, the mainland of their homeland appeared on the horizon. Ithaca, his wife, his son, his beloved kingdom was within sight. but fate always brings tragedy to those who seem closest to him. While Odysseus slept, his companions, tired, jealous, suspicious, thought the bag contained gold and silver. They secretly opened it, and immediately, a terrible storm descended, blowing the ragged ship back to the starting line. Once again, Odysseus watched his homeland disappear before his eyes, not by the gods, but by the hearts of men. He was silent. He did not scream, but his eyes were no longer the same. When Odysseus and his crew landed on the island of Ithaca, they had no idea that this seemingly peaceful place was hiding a mysterious horror. Circe, a beautiful sorceress like a goddess, with a sweet smile and a seductive cup of honey wine, turned brave men into fat, obedient pigs. No screams, no blood, just magic. But the effect was terrifying. Only Odysseus remained untouched. With the help of Hermes, the one with the wings of wisdom, he went to meet Circe, confronting her not with weapons, but with fearsome courage and composure. Circe was surprised by the one who did not submit to her, and then she fell in love with him. A year passed, a year filled with feasting, sex, and the promise of immortality. But amidst all the temptations, Odysseus' heart remained home. He was the only man who had ever touched eternity, but had chosen to leave it for love and duty. After leaving Circe's island, Odysseus is warned of a bizarre challenge that no one has ever survived. The sirens, half-bird, half-human creatures whose voices are so seductive that they can kill anyone who hears them. They use no claws or weapons. They simply sing. Their melodies pierce the mind, dragging the listener's soul to crash against the rocks, destroying them with their ship. Circe instructed, "If you want to survive, cover all the sailors' ears with beeswax." And if Odysseus wants to hear that song out of curiosity, out of a desire to understand what no one else understands, then he must tie himself tightly to the mast, not to let go, no matter how much he begs. And he did. As the boat drew near, the singing began. Not a sound, but a deep dream. "Odysseus, come in. We know it all. The past, the future, glory, love." The melody poured into his ears like sweet wine, like a whisper from the universe. He struggled, begging to be untied. But the sailors covered their ears and continued rowing. Her ship passed. The siren disappeared behind. Odysseus heard what many would die to hear, but he survived because he chose to experience, without losing himself. That is the bravery of the wise hero. The sea seemed endless, but for Odysseus, the way home was always blocked by supernatural forces that no sword could cut through. And the most terrifying challenge was when he faced two monsters guarding the two ends of the narrow strait. Scylla, a six-headed man-eating monster, and Charybdis, a deadly whirlpool that swallowed ships. Going left, Charybdis meant the risk of the whole fleet being swallowed up, all dead. Going right, Scylla, he knew for sure that he would lose at least 6 men. Each of its heads would take a life. A brutal choice. There was no way out without blood. Odysseus, always the clever one, could not avoid death this time. He chose to go with Scylla, and as the prophecy had said, the monster swooped down like a thunderbolt, devouring the 6 sailors who were rowing. They did not have time to scream. They did not understand what was happening. And the most heartbreaking thing was, they did not know why they died. But Odysseus did. He could not save them, nor could he weep, for a leader has no right to fall. His heart bled, but his hand remained firmly on the wheel. The fleet continued on, and he bore the pain for himself. For the survival of all, he chose to sacrifice a part. That was the cruel price of power, and Odysseus paid it with his soul. There are victories that leave their names etched in stone. There are battles that shake the heavens and the earth. But sometimes, what makes a man a legend is a very quiet choice. The choice to turn back. Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, the hero of the Trojan War, the man who devised the plan of the wooden horse to defeat the seemingly impregnable fortress, once faced immortality. When he washed ashore, battered by the sea, after a series of tragedies, Calypso saved his life. But she didn't just want to save Odysseus, she wanted to keep him forever. "I will give you immortality. You will not age, nor get sick, nor die. Stay here, with me, in this eternal paradise." Any other man would have nodded. Anyone who has ever experienced loss, or suffered hardship and pain, can dream of a place without worry, without fear. A place where a beautiful goddess loves and gives everything. If Achilles is the thunder that echoes in the battlefield, the lightning that flashes and disappears in legend, then Odysseus is the one who walks in the darkness, overcoming everything, not by strength, but by intelligence and the will to survive. Not flashy, not omnipotent. Odysseus is the symbol of a real man, sometimes smart, sometimes wrong, sometimes deceitful, and sometimes desperate. He did not die on the battlefield, nor did he receive any divine favor. He survived by coming to terms with fate, by choosing to sacrifice, by choosing to keep what was precious, and letting go of what was not. For 20 years, Odysseus is constantly tested by gods, by monsters, by his own comrades, and sometimes by his own ego. When he is bewitched by Circe, he does not forget the way home. When Calypso offers him immortality, he refuses to return to being a mortal husband. When faced with the song of the sirens or the prophecy of Tiresias, he is not driven by temporary desires, but by a single goal: to return. Odysseus didn't just return to Ithaca, he returned to himself. Each challenge he overcame was a layer of his identity peeled away. From an arrogant warrior, he became a father, a husband, a man who knew fear, who knew love, and who appreciated the little things. Every person is lost in the maze of life. Someone who is sometimes tired, sometimes makes mistakes, but always has the courage to stand up and move on for something more sacred than themselves. That could be home. It could be the person you loved. It could be your conscience. Odysseus is not immortal, but he is immortal in the hearts of posterity. Not because he is perfect, but because he is honest. And sometimes, it is the imperfect person who touches our hearts the most deeply.